Welcome to For Felliness, belysning.
You are not broken. You are out of balance. And there is a path home. This is For Felliness Belysning,
from the Alaska ulfhednar,
ancestral morning light for those
who have been through hell
and are still standing.
This nonprofit has a sliding scale guidance
At alaskaulfhednar.org/guidance.
for felliness belysning.
Begins now.
Every day, someone's little girl, daughter, sister, girlfriend, fiance, wife, cousin, mother, auntie, grandmother, great grandmother, elder disappears, shattering a family, a community, the world. There is something we can all do. Remember them.
God morgen. Happy Thursday to you. I hope today, wow, well, looks like I just woke up. I hope today has been amazing, and I hope this week has been fulfilling and providing you with that which you need for your spiritual evolution. This morning, I want to give a huge shout out to all of you who have liked, followed, and subscribed, regardless what station, channel, or platform you're listening or watching on. I definitely want to say thank you. And thank you so much for helping us to promote this message even further. Our mental health is within our grasp, and we can get there. So thank you so much. For those of you who haven't had the opportunity and or haven't hit that button just yet, please do so. Help us to promote this message. Help us to get this out to those who really need to hear it. As always, I want to give a huge shout out to my friends and family at New Reality TV. NewRealityTV.com is a streaming channel dedicated to spiritual perspectives that offer many different ways that we can look at our spiritual journey and hopefully find one that resonates with us and helps us to evolve onto that next level. Well, today's show is brought to you by the Australian T-shirts across this wide span of land, right, are the banners of cloth that identify our voice, our identity, and our pride. Australian T-shirts weave strength and story into every thread. So apparel that honors the wearer and the journey they walk. To find that and many other affiliates, please visit our website at akumedia.akoutlaw.com/sponsors. There you will find a collection of individuals who have put forth this opportunity for the show to support itself and to actually grow. So please visit and find those things that you need, and by all means secure it. So what's today? Today, of course, is Thursday. We've already covered that, but we're talking about the cave of dreams today. The cave of dreams. The cave of dreams, we talk a lot about our mental processing and how our sensory input, how our physical brain kind of manages our sensory input with obviously a little bit of feed from our imagination. And we kind of talk about that being a pretty cool way of mentally processing that which we experience in this reality. Well, much like there is a physical brain, there is a spiritual one. Our spiritual self resides on the other side of our memory, and it too, like our physical brain, has sensory input. Remember, while our physical brain resides here in the physical realm and collects these physical sensory inputs from these physical experiences that we have, the same thing can be said for our spiritual self. It resides in the spiritual realm and it collects spiritual interactions. And in much the same way that sensory input does, it processes sometimes through the same emotional gauntlet that our physical sensory input does, and it processes into our memories. These memories are then woven into the fabric that we refer to as wisdom. This sensory input is 24/7, 365, without fail, from the time we're bonded to this physical form till the time we leave it. So it's always providing some level of interaction and energy transference from one source to another. So super important that we recognize our spiritual influence, because even if we say, yeah, I don't believe in that hocus pocus stuff, that's for the movies and the churchgoers. I'm neither of those. Wrong. Spiritual energy is transferring from the spiritual realm into you, whether you believe it or not, whether you subscribe to it or not, whether you want to believe it or not. It doesn't matter. The energy is still being transferred. Your spiritual entity, the spiritual self that is, can think about it like this, and this is a great analogy, if you will. Think of you standing here. Here's you, and here's a mannequin of you, right? And so mannequin represents your physical form, that which you recognize who you are. The picture of you that you have, mannequin you are your spiritual self. You're not your physical self. Your consciousness is connected to your spiritual self. All right? And so as we awake, as our physical form wakes up and we become conscious, we have this spring that's going to pull our spiritual self into our physical self, so that now our consciousness is absorbing sensory data, physical sensory data. But when we sleep, when we actually relax all of our sensory input and release our consciousness kind of slides back to where it's its own entity in the spiritual realm. Now, we've talked about how the spiritual realm and the physical realm kind of exist on the same space and time, as we like to call it, here on the physical realm, because like the atom at the atomic structure, there are multiple parts to who we are. So in the atomic structure, we have the protons, the neutrons, and the electrons, right? And so the neutrons and the protons are bonded together to cause what we would refer to, the analogy is our physical life, which is to our physical sensory input, or our physical form, and our emotional form. Those two are bonded together. Okay? You can't get one without the other. right? So those two are together. And then we have this other form called the electron, and it represents the spiritual realm. They are together, connected. The spiritual realm is kind of wrapping around, much like the electron, kind of going around the nucleus. And it is connected to the spiritual realm all the time. Now, you're made up of, for those of us about, I think the study was 150-pound human form, physical form, is about 6.5 octillion atoms make you up. That's what you're comprised of. And those, every one of those 6.5 octillion atoms all have this physical neutron, proton, and they have the spiritual or electron. So you are essentially occupying two places in space and time. Physical realm, where that's important, space and time, right? And then spirituality or the spiritual realm, where neither of that matters. Okay, space, time, that just doesn't calculate there. All right. So your spiritual form, your spiritual form, is then pulled into your physical form when you're awake, when you're conscious, when you're paying attention, when you're actually taking in sensory input to consider having experiences, and you're experiencing some form of reality. Now, in the physical form, we have that second piece, which is the emotional piece. Okay, spiritual realm doesn't have that. It only has memories. Hence, when the spiritual piece, when the spiritual sensory input brings in data into memory, it's not until it gets in memory does it have any type of emotional ring. Okay, when we begin to feel it, and we'll experience some emotional energies wrapped around it. Okay, when it's in memory. But as it's going through the sensory input process, or its own sensory input process, there is no well of the self or horn of feeling. There's none of that. Why? Because spiritual data, spiritual information has no emotional value. It's simply data, right? It's simply facts and thoughts and memories, right? So that's all that's included, which is why when we talk about spiritual information, we talk about receiving spiritual energy, I always say spiritual energy is neutral in its orientation. It's not light, it's not dark, it's neutral. And so, as such, it has some light, some dark, right? That's the idea of neutrality, is that it's kind of this combination of both. Compromise, if you will. So one of the visions that I had very early in my shamanic travels was this idea that our consciousness, that which is us, our consciousness is like a plate that sits on top of the brain. It sits on top of the head, technically. So it's a plate, right? And it's here. And when we're conscious and alert and awake and experiencing some level of the physical reality, that consciousness slides forward, right? And so it's absorbing and seeing and feeling and recognizing all these things. But then when we fall asleep, we drift off into our nightly slumber, or we even take a break during the day and we do a little bit of daydreaming. What we're doing is we're allowing that consciousness to slide back. So instead of being in contact with the physical brain and memory, it's now in touch with the memory and the spiritual brain, or the spiritual self. So it's sliding back. Okay? This happens all the time. Whenever we go to sleep, we're relaxing the springs that hold that spiritual self into the physical form. So we're kind of letting that slide back to to another state, an altered state of consciousness, allowing that to step back. When this consciousness is purely in the spiritual realm, as in when we're asleep or unconscious in some way, we are now communicating with the vastness of the spiritual realm. Okay, we're in constant contact with them. And so the goal when we talk about enlightenment, when we talk about growth and spiritual evolution, and what we're talking about is expanding the consciousness. So instead of just being a very tight plate, we go out, we're now this great big plate. And what now we can do is communicate. Our consciousness is in contact with our physical brain, our memories, and our spiritual brain all at the same time. That's enlightenment. That's the definition of what enlightenment is. It allows us the connectivity to the infinity of knowledge and wisdom and experiences in the spiritual realm while experiencing our physical sensory input from the physical reality at which we are currently existing. These are all real important pieces of our existence. Now, what we may experience from time to time is we may experience where, as I mentioned before, our spiritual entity accepts input from something, somewhere, and it arrives in memories, and that memory, remember, what is the memory going to do? The memory is going to weave the fabric of wisdom, of which imagination is built. Imagination now comes into our physical sensory input and begins the cycle of thought process. Now, what we're talking about here is that we may receive some emotional energy to an experience that we're interpreting that's just, we may not understand. We may kind of question, well, why do we feel that way? What's this? Okay, the reason that's happening is that we have a memory that was given to us by the spiritual realm. We have a memory that has driven imagination, that is fed into our sensory input, which then goes through the thought process, much the same way that every other physical sensory input does. The well of self, the horn of feeling, the mood ring, all of those things. And it has this additional energy connected to it. And we're like, where did that come from? Well, now you know. It came from your spiritual mind processing something from the spiritual realm and put it in your memories. Memories, of course, drives imagination. Imagination then drives physical sensory input. Physical sensory input then drives memories, and the cycle continues, right? So it's super important that we recognize that, because sometimes, like I say, sometimes we may have these emotional shifts, and we may not understand them. When they, what was this? This is why. All right. Before we get too far, we're going to dig into, we're digging. All right. And what do we have? Ooh, great rune for today. Perthro. Perthro is our rune for today. And Perthro, and I quote, means evolutionary change. That sounds really cool. It's joy, fellowship, knowledge of the Orlog, and good omens. So, Perthro tells us that today's that day. Today's the day where we're going to think about our evolutionary path. We're going to put that into our processing this morning and today, and think about how these things that we experience affect our trajectory. And more importantly, how do we take back control? Right? So that's what we're going to work on today. Is we're going to work on Perthrow. We're going to work at understanding our evolutionary path and how we can now direct that energy path, that receiving information, interpreting information, processing information, and most importantly, storing it. Very important parts. All right, we need to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I want to talk about putting all of this that we've talked about today on the road for you to use today in your modern day life, and hopefully find a better mental space. Find that comfort and that peace that you've been seeking and searching for. I do want to say just before we go to break that no one is wrong. You're not wrong in your spiritual beliefs. Whether you choose to find one God, whether you find multiple gods, whether you find no gods at all, and they're all spirits, your perspective of your spiritual journey is uniquely your own, and it's meant to be that way. So think about that one. All right, let's take a real quick commercial when we'll take a look at a rubber on the road.
Weekend or sunbreak, eBookers Ireland bundles flights, stays, and car hire smartly. Plan the escape. Link in our description.
It's happening.
It's in the air. The time is now.
We're all waking up.
We're waking up.
We're all waking up.
It's all shifting.
New vibrations.
It's you.
It's you.
It's me. It's all of us.
Together.
A new time.
A new day.
A new energy.
A new energy.
New reality.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
NewRealityTV.com.
Step into a look that carries you. Janet Howard fashions, clean lines, confident silhouettes. Browse the new edits. Check out a link in our description.
These words are stirring something heavy in you. You don't have to carry it alone. Sliding scale spiritual guidance with sessions outside normal business hours is available through the Alaska ulfhednar. Visit akulfhednar.org/guidance to book a free discovery session.
And welcome back. Thank you for taking that quick break with us. As always, I appreciate my friends and family at New Reality TV, newrealitytv.com, a streaming channel dedicated to spiritual perspectives that can offer us that next step, that next physical step in our evolutionary path. So do check them out. So today we're talking about the Cave of Dreams. Before we get started, I do want to also give another shout out to Australian T-shirts. Australian T-shirts, one of our many affiliates. A huge collection of T-shirts and fabrics and clothing items, apparel. that you can wear any age. I've seen onesies for the babies and all the way up to t-shirts and many other things. So do check them out. Those and all of our other wonderful affiliates are available at akumedia.akoutlaw.com/sponsors. So do check all of those out. In addition, as mentioned in the break, for those of you who may need some one-on-one counseling, one-on-one guidance, by all means, feel free to check out my website at akulfhednar.org/guidance. So there you can get sign up, and it's backed by a nonprofit. So be sure to check it out. It's a sliding scale, so be sure to check those out. Today, as I mentioned, we're talking about the Cave of Dreams, and we're talking about controlling the process of our dreams, and most importantly, controlling the process of where our memories are and what our memories are, weaving the fabric of that thing we call wisdom. Now, we've spoken on many occasions, and we'll speak many times again, about this idea that our experiences are weaving fabric between those things that we call data points or intellect within our mind. So we're building this fabric in the mind, and that fabric, of course, is this thing we call wisdom. Wisdom, of course, drives imagination. Imagination then is fed into our spiritual or our physical sensory input as it comes in, as we experience reality. There are many pieces that will be constructed by this thing called wisdom. And ultimately, those processes, that energy that's being fed into our interpretation of reality, will be fed through our emotional strings, will be put up into the horn of feeling, where the horn of feeling then helps us reconvert the biochemistry within our body back to this thing, this bioenergy that's then stored in memory, securing what we experienced in the past, what experiences have been brought to us from the spiritual realm. All of these things are coming to us. So many people have chosen to journal their dreams and to determine kind of what exactly it meant, and really help to kind of guide their future, their motions in the future. One of the things that we have to remember is that the spiritual realm, when it's feeding us this information during sleep or daydreams, isn't based on any timeline. So we may get instructions or guidance for things that haven't happened yet. And it's very frequent that we receive kind of dream information about an event that occurs 20, 30 years in the future. It's, again, the spiritual realm has no understanding or use for this thing we call time. So they're having conversations, they're communicating, they're interacting with, providing imagery and intellect for events that may not have occurred yet in our lives. We have not experienced them. And so there's really no context until we do. Once we receive that experience through the sensory input, memories are triggered, imagination's triggered, and all of a sudden, now you may have an emotional stack that you weren't prepared for. Something that may have seemed very mundane is now not very mundane. It's overwhelming. So thinking about that helps us to understand what's going on, right? So think when something, and you find yourself getting overwhelmed very quickly, stop and go, wait, did I have, maybe I've had some kind of a vision in the past that pointed to this, which is why now I'm having an emotional experience. And it occurs quite frequently. So again, going back to kind of my mainstay of solutions when we talk about finding a better mental space and being able to deal with situations like this, going back to intrinsic reflection or meditation. Intrinsic reflection allows us to look at what is causing this emotional turmoil, okay? In addition, it can also help us reestablish our cognitive space. Remember, the cognitive space is that little space at the top of the horn of feeling, which allows us to kind of manage the reconversion of biochemistry back into energy, right? So we're converting back. When that happens, we're converting exactly what's received, not what we want, what's received. So if we have this other energy, this other chemistry within the body, that's going to alter what that packet looks like when it's reinterpreted, okay? And so it could be, quite honestly, whoa, why am I thinking that way? Why am I feeling that way? Well, you're feeling that way because you have this other chemistry, this other thought process involved, right? And your belief systems, or maybe your virtues and values here in the well of the self, have created an additional energy source to that packet that when, by the time it got to the horn of feeling, it was very different than what you thought you had experienced, okay? That makes sense. So it's this weird circle. All right. Well, today we're celebrating Thor's Day. So in celebration of Thor and his day, we want to apply strength to our decisions and our management. And strength is going to require, we're going to require some strength to stop and focus, to reassert our cognitive space within the horn of feeling, and to identify what emotion or what a memory was woven into the fabric of our wisdom that's creating this reaction, right? That's creating this momentary emotional reaction. And then how do we reacquire cognitive space to think our way through it? All of this can be done with a little bit of intrinsic reflection, meditation, just stopping, taking those big breaths. I use the 9 breath process, works really well. Just think about it, and then poof, there we go. So today I would like you to take some time throughout your day. Doesn't have to be a long time. It can be 5 minutes, here, there, and everywhere. Find 5 minutes and just think about, what am I feeling? What's being processed? What's being, what's causing me to struggle? What's causing me maybe some pain, whatever the case. So check those out and you will be on your way. You'll be on your way to kind of recovering the control of your cognitive space. All right? All right. Enjoy your Thor's Day, and we will see you again tomorrow where we will embrace the energy of Rhea, and we'll talk about how we can use that to benefit ourselves in a way that kind of helps us to evolve in the direction that we want to go. All right? My friends, have a wonderful Thor's Day. We will see you again tomorrow morning. Love and light. Fulfilliness. Una. Hjälp oss med. Magnify. Tu för åg. Kaliot.
If what we've touched today hits something raw for you, you don't have to carry it alone. We offer a sliding scale spiritual guidance with sessions outside normal business hours. Visit akulfhednar.org/guidance to book a free discovery session.